On this week's show, we've got some potential power unit changes, the new Madrid circuit news, and of course, a look ahead to Miami. Let's go. Hello and welcome to another episode of Back of the Grid. I'm your host this week, Tom, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris.
Evening.
How are you this fine, warm, early spring evening?
It is very warm. Yeah, I'm feeling refreshed after a long weekend. Managed to go away and not miss any F1. Not having to rapidly catch up with race highlights before we record a podcast.
I managed to visit a different race circuit for a different sport without thinking I'm missing the F1. So that was nice. I'm very sunburnt as a consequence, which may come through on camera, may not. But a long afternoon, a long day, in fact, sat in the sun in Donington was well worth it. Got to witness a couple of races with our good friend Rowan from our earlier podcast interview. If you've ever seen that as well, be sure to check that out on YouTube. We did a nice 20-minute interview with Rowan there or thereabouts about his first season after being a rookie in Formula 4 and all that stuff. So it was good to see him in person actually racing. Track limit penalties cost him a little bit, I'll say that much. But then he gained from him in another race and jumped a few places. So, but it does show how close that field is. There were people getting track limit penalties and going from like 3rd to 8th or something like that, or 9th. So a 5-second penalty for track limits is like dropping you so far down the order in that series. It's crazy.
Where were they getting track limits at Donington?
I don't know where they were, to be fair.
Because it's pretty grassy there.
I'm going to assume it was maybe things through like the final chicane because they were doing the national circuit, the shorter one. Yeah. So maybe taking too much curb on the national circuit or something like that would be my guess.
Yeah, makes sense.
But yeah, it was one of those moments where, because I was at the circuit, didn't know about the penalties, and I went up to Rowan's dad, congratulating him, saying like, "Well done on the podium in race 2." And he's like, "Well, it would have been if it wasn't for the penalties." I'm like, "Oh, sorry, I didn't know." But then it worked out the other way around. So he finished, I think, sixth in the third race of the day, but managed to get to either 4th or 3rd thanks to some penalties. So
nice,
yeah, good results. But that's it for Formula 4 catch up. That's not what we're here for. We're suddenly going to become a Formula 4 podcast.
Formula 4 corner.
Yeah. Rowan Campbell Pilling corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I do some news? Shall I let you do some news?
Yeah. Let's do some news. And we talk a bit about the 2026 power units because we've not really sort of covered this pretty much since they were first announced, really. But there was an F1 Commission meeting held last week to discuss some potential changes to those rules, extremely late in the day.
Yep.
For those who've not been following this, essentially these potential changes have come about because a lot of people have voiced some concerns about these new power units. I think Max Verstappen was one of the first to kind of publicly talk about his experience sort of running the simulator. But basically, the current engines are about a like 80-20, 70-30 split, I think, between internal combustion engine and electrical power. The new power units from next year are going to be a 50-50 split. And the concern is that particularly on power-hungry tracks like your Monzas of the world, the electrical energy was going to run out like halfway down the straight, and you'd get cars actually kind of decelerating again in the second half of a straight. So there's proposals being put forward to, in races, not necessarily in qualifying, but in races, adjusting the electrical output so it's closer to sort of 60-40, and also adjusting the way the electrical energy is deployed so it'll drop off a bit more gradually. There wasn't actually, initially there was going to be a vote on this, but no vote was actually held. They've said there's more discussions going to take place. For these changes to actually happen, it would require 4 of the 5 powertrain manufacturers to agree to it. So it's 5 because Audi are involved in this as well, alongside Honda, Mercedes, Ferrari, and Red Bull/Ford. You can probably tell a lot about how the teams are progressing with the 2026 engines when Toto Wolff described these proposed changes as a joke, whereas Christian Horner said, they're pretty sensible. We should have had this discussion a couple of years ago, but they're quite sensible.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, the general feeling in the paddock seems to be that Mercedes are ahead of the rest. I know it's all hearsay at the moment, but in 2013, everyone thought Mercedes were ahead of the rest, and that proved to be the case in 2014. So.
I mean, for a long time before those 2013 reg changes, Mercedes were running very good powertrains in things like, even in things like trucks that were similar technologies and specifications to what the new Formula One spec was going to be. So some would say they sort of hit the ground running in that capacity, being able to almost transfer some of that tech and then just adapt it for the specific specifications of F1. I would say that out of everyone who does like sporty engines that's in this sport at the minute, Mercedes is probably the only one that does the best electric compensated petrol engine. So like Ferrari don't really do that. Ford tend to either be full EV or full petrol, as do Audi. Nobody else is really doing that in normal road cars. I mean, Honda do have hybrids, but not to the same capacity as a sports engine. They're generally straight fours, and that's it, or they're electric. There's not a huge amount of crossover. Whereas Mercedes, for a long time, have always had these. They always refer to them as a mild hybrid, but I don't like calling it a mild hybrid because it's not a true hybrid. But for a long time, they've had these electrical power units that, in the road cars, they're only adding I think it's something like 20 or 30 horsepower to the petrol engine, but it's the cleverness in the way it's introduced. Like, it's used at launch to essentially get you as much torque as possible, like you would in an EV, by using those electric motors as boost almost. So it's really interesting stuff, but they're the only ones that I can think of out of everyone that's involved in Formula One that are actively doing it in road cars throughout their entire offering, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, of the other manufacturers currently in F1, Honda's probably the one you'd expect to be ahead as well, just because they've done a good job with these regulations, which are also hybrid regulations. Red Bull, Ford, they're very new to all of this, obviously. Audi, it's going to be their first F1 engine ever, I think I'm right in saying.
Maybe, I don't know.
They're certainly newcomers anyway.
I mean, there's been things from the
Audi group, I suppose.
Before. Whether there's been an actually Audi branded one is a good question.
Don't think there has. They also, any talk of V10s has been sort of squashed. That was sort of under the surface for a while, people talking about bringing back V10s, which was never going to happen. From what I've read, actually, it sounds like the V10 talk actually came initially from Bernie Ecclestone, sort of in an interview or like a chat with some high up people, and Mohammed Ben Salem, being who he is, got wind of this, and then he started loudly talking about V10s to make himself the centre of that story.
Of course.
And then other kind of journalists and some people in the sport latched onto it, but it was never a realistic thing. There's just everything about these new power units sounds concerning, though. Like, there was concern going into 2014. Obviously, it was a very new technology, but I've not really heard much positive talk from anyone about these 2026 power units. And to be discussing changes like this so late in the day, like, you know, these engines are going to be testing in 9 months' time?
Yeah.
And they're talking about changing the way they work. Like, it's a really messy place to be in, and they seem so complicated. As much as they're removing the MGU-H component, which has always been the most complicated, most problematic part of these hybrid engines, there's so much additional complication in the way the electric power is deployed in this kind of drop-off curve, and the sort of DRS replacement that's kind of a push to pass that's built in as well. There's, It's all very concerning, to be honest. Never mind the fact there's also a whole new set of chassis and aero regs as well. Like normally you'll get one or the other, but we're getting both this time, and new sporting regulations.
Yeah, it's a brand new series basically from
It's a
season.
huge year next year. Through all this as well, the FIA confirmed that Cadillac are now going to be a power unit manufacturer from 2029 onwards, which is odd because 2029 is the last year of the next power unit regulations. So Cadillac are going to make one of these power units for a single season and then make one for the next set of regulations, it seems.
Yeah, bit of an odd time to decide to go full manufacturer mode, but
it's funny as well because all of F1's pushback against Andretti, like a big part of it was always we want to bring in manufacturers, we don't want someone coming in and like scrabbling to find an engine from someone else. And now Cadillac are going to be using customer engines for the next several years until they build their own. But that's by the by. So I think, I mean, this 2026 stuff has got to be locked down in the coming month or so, probably, because they're simply going to run out of time. Like they've had so long to figure this out, and we're still this close talking about it. So, not the last time we'll be talking about these, I am sure.
I doubt it very much.
Next thing on the list is we have an update to the layout of the Madring, the new circuit in Madrid, which is going to be replacing.
I get why they've called it the Madring. But the English native of me just can't help but see it as a Madring.
The new home of the Spanish Grand Prix, replacing Barcelona from 2026. They also released a video of it in a sim. Did you watch said video?
Yeah, it's not very inspiring, is it? I mean, it's also the furthest thing I've ever seen from a ring when you look at the circuit layout.
Yeah, I mean,
it looks like somebody's sat on the far end or something and it. I don't know how I feel about this one. I'm more than willing to obviously give it its time and like for us to see running on it before I fully judge it and everything like that. But yeah, I can potentially see it being the way of Valencia, maybe. Like,
it feels very Valencia.
It looks quite Valencia, not necessarily in the layout, but like the same if it's going to be laid out anything like it, you know. Yeah, I mean, I just can't see a huge number of overtaking opportunities. That's the problem.
No, I rewatched that like sim video earlier, specifically looking for where you'd overtake, and there just isn't anything.
Do you know what the craziest bit is? I've just put it on in the background, and I forgot about something that I've just seen out the corner of my eye.
Exactly what you're going to say.
You know, what am I going to say?
You're going to say that they would have had however many attempts to record that video, and the one they released still has them launching it over the curbs, losing the back end into the wall and power sliding.
Yeah, and then there's multiple corners where they're hitting curbs and losing it. But I'd forgot how bad that first.
They literally have a crash.
The chicane in question looks like that absolutely awful one, like that we're probably about to talk about at some point in Miami. Like, it's there because they've got to forcibly slow the cars down, and it is in no way designed with racing in mind. And that is what that chicane that the Madring appears to have is the same sort of thing.
That's the end of the longest flat out section on the circuit. So
it
should
and
be
then it's like a literal 90-degree right. Like it's...
Well, do you know why it's the corners profiles like that?
No, I'm assuming there's something behind that corner though.
It's a roundabout.
Oh, okay.
It's one of, I think, 3 roundabouts on the track that they have to build a corner to get around. Yeah. Like you say, like I'm prepared to wait and see, but nothing about this circuit is particularly inspiring me at the moment.
Yeah. I mean,
and it's especially frustrating when after years they finally made some changes to Barcelona, and the last few races there have been really good, and now they take it away.
Yeah, it's what they've tried to do at Madrid feels like when I used to try and draw circuits on a piece of paper from memory. And that never really joined back up. Have you ever tried to do that and been bad at
so
it?
you have to sort of go, oh no.
So you sort of go like, I mean, even Monza, it's supposed to be so easy. I was like, there's a straight there, then a little bit there. And then you'd end up here, and it's like, oh, but Parabolica won't go all the way around and connect. Squiggle. Like, that is what it feels like this is. Or just like, oh, there's something there, we'll just go around it. Like, it doesn't feel like it's been designed with Formula One racing in mind. It's like someone's gone on Street View and just gone, yeah, we could drive here.
It really does.
Here. And they've not thought about it being driven in a Formula One car. But this could all be just a bad sim mock-up. And I don't know who's driving in the sim, so I don't want to be too awful to them. Like, they may have had testing conditions as the circuit looks, but it doesn't help that the sim lap that they've released is someone constantly losing the back end. It's like me when I decide to turn traction control off on any sim game. I'm just like, no, I'll turn that back on.
I mean, to be fair, in this sim video, the track surface is also brown. It looks like it looks
like running track, doesn't it?
Yeah, or like a tennis hard court or something. Very strange.
Please make it out of that just to see what happens. Maybe that's why the car can't stay.
Yeah, that's why they're sliding so much.
They're just sliding around on like the vulcanized rubber.
It's made of clay.
Yeah, or clay. Yeah, brilliant.
Another couple of bits to mention before we talk about Miami. Driver misconduct rules. So the FIA president has had a little say on the Appendix B, which is the rules about driver conduct and swearing and bringing the sport into disrepute and all of that. He said that following constructive feedback from drivers across our 7 FIA World Championships, I am considering making improvements to Appendix B. As a former rally driver, I understand the demands they face better than most. And that statement went along with a picture of him that must be 20 years old in his racing gear when he did like a tiny bit of rally driving.
When he entered like the Monaco Classic for anyone to enter or something.
He's so desperate to be seen as like one of the drivers, Oh, I'm just like you guys. But yeah, the constructive feedback he's talking about is, well, most notably, it's World Rally Championship driver called Adrian Formeau. He was the first driver to be penalised under these rules for swearing. Off the back of that, all the rally drivers formed a association similar to the Grand Prix Drivers Association and then refused to answer any questions for the next round. Obviously, in the most recent F1 race in Jeddah, we had Verstappen cutting his interview short, basically saying, I can't express my opinions under these current rules. So the pushback seems to be working a little bit, but I feel like we complain about this guy every week, but like he stood for president on like, I'll be very hands off and like oversee things from afar and let the sports be their own thing. And he couldn't have been more different to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, hopefully this is he's had some sort of moment of realization. Maybe he's finally realized that the way he's handling things and the things he's implementing are having a far more detrimental impact than anything else could have, and he is actually better staying out of these small things. Like they're not what the FIA should really be concerning themselves with.
Not at all.
It's not. They should be concerning themselves with like actually making high quality racing and like basically adjusting the rules and the regulations to encourage high quality racing, not going out of their way to nitpick on what drivers are saying and when they're saying it, and in his case, doing every opportunity he can to get in a podium shot or on a post-qualifying interview in the back of camera, or like the fact that the drivers are ignoring him in those scenarios, volumes. Like, and it's not just Max at this point. There's other drivers just kind of doing a very, like, let's call it polite, yep, okay, hi, bye, and then just like saying literally the bare minimum and then leaving him to it. So yeah, I'm glad that it is starting to work. It's a shame that it took the rally drivers being treated the way they were for it to get to that point, but at least something is moving back in the right direction because of it.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it really needs to.
Yeah.
Just sick of him. And then last little bit of news, the Mexican Grand Prix is expected to announce a new contract in the coming days. This is currently the last year of the current contract. It's obviously always been a really popular and well-attended event since it returned, but this is going to be the first year without Sergio Perez on the grid. So it'll be interesting to see if that affects attendance and atmosphere this year.
I would imagine that at best they might get either a short deal or some sort of like a provisional agreement, and there'll be provisions in there that if things aren't good this year because of the lack of a Mexican driver on the grid, that the deal can be like pulled from them and moved to somebody else. I wouldn't be surprised. It would be a shame if that was the case, but I think I do get the feeling, though, I will say this, that I do get the feeling that the Mexican fan base would be very similar to the Brazilian one and that whole South American culture in general, where they will turn out for the sport regardless of having a driver of their nationality on the grid. And I'm pretty sure that, well, sorry, I shouldn't say South American because it's not, is it Central America, Mexico? But that sort of part of the world, I guess, is very well known for being extremely passionate about drivers from their country and that national pride, but also still turning out in droves when there isn't a driver of their nationality on the grid. Like Brazil, there's always been a Brazilian driver around, I guess, but not always necessarily been.
Not for a while, though. Bortoleto is the first in a while.
Is that since Massa?
I think the first since Massa, yeah.
There's got to be someone in between, surely. Maybe not. Where was Bruno Senna in all this?
Yeah, I was going to say,
that's a throwback.
Did Massa stick around after Bruno Senna? Yeah, can't remember. But it's been a good while anyway.
Yeah, but they've always, but yeah, Sao Paulo's always still been well attended, despite whether there's been a successful Brazilian driver on the grid or not. I can imagine Mexico being the same because they're, it's a huge motorsporting event for them. I mean, I'm pretty sure Silverstone would be pretty well attended even if there were no British drivers on the grid. Maybe not as well attended, but still well attended.
Pretty good, yeah. A couple of things Discord are pointing out. Firstly, and I'm happy to do this as a geography pedant, Mexico is North America, not Central America. Central America doesn't really exist as a continent.
Blame the Yorkshire school system.
And also the fact that Perez driving for Cadillac is not out of the question at all. Apparently there's even rumors he's bought a house in Miami, which may be a first step to him being around a Cadillac. But yeah, so it could only actually end up being 1 year without him there. But
which I guess something like that may tie into how long the new deal is, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. I just wish they'd do something with the track, though. And I know as an event it's really good, but the track leaves a little bit to be desired since they renovated it for this era, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
The whole middle section just kind of does nothing. The stadium section is basically exists to slow the cars down so the people in the stadium can see them. It doesn't add anything to the racing.
I was just going to say, do you want to know a Brazilian driver we missed?
Who do we miss?
Fittipaldi.
Oh, yeah, he did do a couple of races, didn't he?
Technically count.
Yes. I don't know if you ever watch Mr. V's Garage on YouTube.
No.
He's very good. I can recommend it. He does a lot of extremely deep, nerdy Formula One stuff, like creating an ELO system to rate every driver that's ever existed, or going through F1 history and applying the Formula 2 champion can't return rule to Formula 1 and seeing who the champions are and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But he recently did a 2.5-hour video where he did a tier ranking of every single corner on the calendar.
Wow.
Which I mentioned because he described the corner leaving the stadium in Mexico as possibly the worst corner in Formula 1 right now.
Is that the one coming between the stands, the right-hander?
Yes.
Not the one that's part of the old banking? No. Okay.
The right-hander that takes you out of it.
Yeah, it's pretty
It's
trash.
up there.
It's pretty trash.
Anyway, that's a weird aside.
Well, I was just going to say, it will be one of the worst corners until they finish the Madrid ring. And then that left-right that we just talked about, that'll become the worst.
There was one more thing I meant to put in the show notes and forgot to, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Taking us away from F1 again for a little bit. McLaren have announced that they're going to be leaving Formula E at the end of this season to sort of focus their efforts on their World Endurance Championship return. It sounds like the team is still going to exist. There's just going to be someone else coming in to run it because it's seems like it was never like a full McLaren outfit as it was. Like there were people running the team on McLaren's behalf, so there's going to be someone else coming in to kind of bankroll it. But another interesting kind of Formula E McLaren link there. Guy called James Barkley, who Formula E fans will know as Jaguar's team principal for a good number of years. He left recently, and the rumour is that McLaren are going to be bringing him in to head up their WEC entry, which is a good old hiring, if that makes, because he seems...
I mean, Jaguar have had a decent time through the years really in good, Formula E. So, and he's a key part of it, alongside the drivers and the rest of the team. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see if that comes to fruition, and if so, how it plays out.
Yeah. And as always, if you're not into endurance racing, I can highly recommend getting into it. It's going from strength to strength at the moment. The Genesis car was revealed recently as well, which is the kind of Hyundai sub-brand that's going to be entering. You've got McLaren coming in, Ford are coming back to the top class as well. Fill your boots with that. It's fantastic.
I mean, if you want an advertisement for it, I guess go check out the highlights from the 6 hours of Imola, because that was a pretty decent race.
It was, yeah.
As races at Imola go, lots of stuff going on up and down the grid. Some argy-bargy, but it's also some really good overtakes and so on. So if you do want an advertisement for WEC, check out the 6 hours of Imola. And I think Spa's soon, is it not?
Spa is very soon, within the next couple of weekends, I think.
Yeah, so that's 6 hours as well, isn't it? 6 hours of Spa.
The only sad thing is that it looks like Silverstone's not going to be coming back to the calendar. There was rumblings that it might be for a while, but not going to happen, sadly, because that was some of my favourite days at a racetrack I've ever had. The couple of times me and Stu went to Silverstone for WEC. But alas. Shall we talk about Miami?
Yeah, let's do some storylines. So I guess probably the big place to start is at the top end of the championship. Norris has not had the best time in recent weeks, and Piastri now leads the way. Piastri probably looking overall like the best candidate, I guess, if you were going to back anyone right now to win the title, even in this early stage. But Miami's a circuit where Norris has had decent results before and picked up his first ever win. So, yeah, could Norris maybe claw something back? Could we maybe start seeing a little bit of a back and forth between the two of them throughout this season? I mean, do we want that?
I think it'll be good just as a kind of taking a neutral point of view for the championship as a whole. I think a Norris win would be the best for it. I really want those two. And, if Verstappen's in there as well, like the more drivers we can have in the championship fight going on, the better. And, it's the track he got his first win at last year. Hopefully he can kind of take some of that energy in. I think it'd be good to have him win this one.
Yeah, I think after the last few results he's had with Oscar finishing where he has and picking up the wins he has, Norris probably needs a bit of a bounce back win for sure at this one. Yeah. Upgrades. This is a place where we saw those upgrades from McLaren, which helped them to that win, basically, and obviously starting to eat back into the advantage that Red Bull started with for the first few races. So, do we think anyone up and down the grid is going to bring anything significant to Miami, with it being the first race in the States? And we've had a gap as well, obviously.
Yeah, seeing I've not seen any specific talk of it yet, but we have had this kind of little gap after a really hectic stretch. So I imagine there'll be a few updates here and there. So yeah, we might see the order start to change a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, normally something like this, you might expect a front wing modification or two, wouldn't you? Like a slightly different spec of something fairly easy to revert if there's problems and that kind of thing. Like just take the new nose cone off and stick an old one on, that kind of thing. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what goes on there. Tyres is another one. We've had a couple of races now where we've been talking about the tyre selections and were they the right ones for the circuit. This year, Pirelli are going a step softer than last year's race. I think everyone did mediums, or pretty much everyone did mediums last year for the sprint.
Yeah.
And that will now be the hard for context, I guess. So the hardest tyre that we will have is the race that everybody did the sprint on last year. Or pretty much everybody did the sprint on last year.
Yeah, Tsunoda and Sargent were the only ones that didn't. They ran what was the soft with this year's medium, and they actually did were the ones that moved forward the most. So it'll be interesting in the sprint to see if more people take a gamble on the softer compounds this time.
Yeah, I think the only thing that this might cause a problem with, personally, is it will probably make the soft too soft to do the sprint on. Would be my guess.
Yes,
I'm again one of those in classic situations. More than happy to be proven wrong, but I think they might have been better leaving it as it was, just on the basis that there was that realistic gamble of going to the soft. But I guess it might be more that everyone in the sprint runs the hard, and those that want to take the gamble can use the medium. I suppose it's still doable, isn't it? They're just different compounds. I guess it just depends on how many hards they want to be saving for Grand Prix. So, yeah, be very interesting to see how that plays out in strategy and if it has a positive impact or a negative one. We'll have to see. And then, as is tradition at a race like Miami, in order to make it somewhat entertaining, cars bring special liveries. Well, teams bring special liveries to cars. So we've got a Ferrari special livery, a Mercedes special livery, a Sauber, and a Racing Bulls.
Yeah, well, at least all of those seem to be teasing liveries, but nothing official yet.
Was it Miami where we had the blue Ferrari that year? The pale baby blue Ferrari, yeah,
which was awful.
Yeah, I'm not saying it was a good thing. I'm just saying it was something that was done. It's a thing that happened. I'm just waiting for the year that someone goes full synthwave with the livery, because I love my synthwave branding.
Year.
I do love my synthwave. Yeah, actually, that's true. Wasn't there a Vegas livery that was a little close to synthwave style?
Yeah, I think so
as well, from someone.
All the Ferrari team wear seems to be very white, so maybe they're going to have some more white on the car.
Yeah,
Mercedes have released some very cool looking merchandise that cost the earth.
Yes, far too expensive, not purchasing. Or, as I said in the Discord, I'll probably end up purchasing that next year at a touring cars event when it's in the bargain bin of the merchandise stands that appear at events like that. So complete tangent, but hilarious, I think, and I think everyone can appreciate this to some degree. I when I was at Donington with my friend this weekend, his daughter, who is now 5, I want to say, was at her first racing event. And she saw everyone wearing hats and t-shirts and stuff and was like, I want some. So he took her to this classic merchandise stand where, yes, you've got like relatively current stuff, but then you've got your bargain bin of just 5-year-old trash, pretty much. She ended up with a Rich Energy Haas t-shirt and, to be fair, a fairly recent Alpine hat because it had black and pink on it, so it's a BWT era of some point. And the reason being was I like blue and pink together, and this one has gold on it. So she's now a Haas Alpine fan.
That's some relics there.
So yeah, she looked like she'd been a fan longer than the shirt existed because of her age and when Rich Energy was sponsoring the Haas. That must have been at least 5 years ago, if not more.
Brilliant.
Probably more now. So
that's really good.
Yeah, it was quality. But yeah, tangent. And Paul says we've missed the biggest storyline of Miami over in the chat. He says, will a car end up in the harbour? Because the harbour, as everyone knows, is painted on the floor.
Still got boats, though, bizarrely.
Yeah, true. True it does. Right, let's wind this towards the inevitable, Chris. Let's make some predictions for the race.
Is that you leaving a gap so I can go first?
It is. I'm going to ask you to predict fastest in Q3.
I think I'm going to... Ferrari were quite good here last year, but...
Yeah.
I think I'm going to go Norris.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to go on a bit of a limb and say Verstappen. Because he's generally had a good time here as well. And he's doing things that I wouldn't expect that car to do. So I just feel like this is maybe one of those places where he can make a little bit of a difference. So I'm going to go with Verstappen fastest in Q3. Plus, his one lap pace is definitely where he's been excelling in that car. So yeah, Verstappen for me. Race winner, who are you thinking?
I think I'm double Norris.
Okay, this is where I'll agree with you. I'm going to go with a Norris win overall because I think the McLaren has got better race pace. I think Verstappen can do special things on one lap pace, but the car maybe can't sustain him for a win. So I'm going to say Norris as well.
Yeah.
First DNF. I'll go first on this one, and I'm probably just going to pick somebody at random because I haven't got any other way to do it. So that worked for me last time. So I'm going to say Esteban Ocon. It's an American car, isn't it? So
I don't think any of the rookies will have driven here before. I don't think we've had any Fearless series other than F1 Academy, weirdly. I'll say Doohan, I think.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah.
He's got it hard enough, Chris.
I'm sort of saying it knowing and hoping I'll be wrong.
So, number of finishes. I mean, generally, you get an okay number of finishes here from memory.
Pretty high normally.
I'm going to be bold and say 19 on that basis for this one.
19 is what I was thinking as well.
Are you going to go with that as well?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. And then random driver for this week. As some of you may already know, because some of you may have already been submitting your predictions because of us being a little bit late recording this, it is Alexander Albon. I don't know if you've seen this or not yet, Chris. Have you managed to?
I haven't seen this yet.
You hadn't? Interesting. I've seen it just now. But So, Albon and the Williams is tough. He's had good times here in the past, from what I remember. At least considering the car he was in, he's done all right. The car is looking better now, so I'm going to go with an 11th. No, a 10th. I'm going to say a point, 10th. I'm doing it.
I have a feeling Williams might not like this track as much. So I'm going to say... I'll say 11th. I'll say he's going to adjust himself.
I'm going to hate myself if that happens. Just because it's what I said and then I changed my mind at the last second. Right, that is our predictions in. So if you want to get involved with this, you can head to backofthegrid.com and submit yours as well. Always worth doing, because if you do manage to get a perfect weekend and score 5 out of 5, there is a prize for you. And the leaderboard is always very, very close. So even though you've missed a few races, have a few good weeks and you will no doubt claw yourself back some points and be able to be in contention for a season-ending championship prize. But that is it for predictions. We do also have a couple of fantasy leagues. I suppose it's worth mentioning. We run one on the official F1 fantasy game, and we also run one on GridRival. GridRival also has an IndyCar league, which we're trying to take part in Discord, but it's basically a lot of us who don't regularly watch IndyCar doing our best to work out who's going to be good at what circuit. But we're trying. We are trying. So that's probably worth a mention with them racing this weekend as well. So yeah, that's all on backofthegrid.com. All the information is there. That also rounds it about for this week, doesn't it? I feel like I've just talked a lot, but
that is everything.
So I'll do the social bit now. If you want to stay in touch with us, if you want to send us any kind of questions post-race or anything like that, anything you want us to talk about on the review when we're back next week, then head to X, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, anything like that. We're on there. Go find us. Most of the links, if not all of them, again, should be on the website. So head there for those for the most part. Obviously, if you're here on YouTube and you're enjoying what we're doing, please do remember to like and subscribe. It's really appreciated, and it obviously helps spread the show through YouTube, so that is appreciated. And as we mentioned earlier, we're starting to explore into like some other areas of content rather than just a straight podcast. So the interview with Rowan, as we mentioned, the Formula 4 driver, is available, and yeah, it's getting nice little reception. So please, people are liking that. So go check it out if you haven't already. That is it for this episode. We will be back next week to review the Miami GP. So we will leave you all to it, and have a good weekend, everyone. Enjoy the weather if it's nice where you are, like it is for us. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.